All right, okay, good evening, everyone. Okay, so we'll get started for today's session over here. As usual, what we'll do is I'll walk through the week calendar, highlight some of the analysis over here, and also opportunities available for the week. Okay, so let's get started by looking at what's on the radar for the week. This week over here is generally quiet as compared to last week. So last week we have like the FOMC meeting minutes coupled with the US election, which, of course, if you guys have been following through, Trump did win the election, and of course, that sent the US equities market all-time high, right? We did see the S&P, NASDAQ, Dow Jones generally has been pushing up. Okay, so last week there are some volatility in the market. Obviously, a lot of the dollar major pairs has been in a consolidation last week as well, building into this week. Okay, so this week focus here would continue to be the U.S. side of things. We do have the bank holiday as of today. You can see over here, but going into Wednesday, we have our first CPI data after the last week FOMC, where the Fed cut rates. Currently the expectation here is the same as of previous, right? So I don't expect much movement building into CPI for the data itself, but of course when the actual data release, depending on the actual data, that might have an impact, right, overall. Okay, other than that, we also have the Australia unemployment rate. So of course that's going to be important as well. And then ending of the week, we have the US core retail sales coming in too, right? And you can see over here the expectation is for the data to be weaker than previous month. Um, Not surprising, okay. But of course the actual data is the one that's going to be most significant at the end of the day, okay. So this week focus in terms of academic data would be very much on the US side, of course, plus also the okay, and of course plus also the Aussie side, right? So both of it is the one to focus. Right. So with that said, let's jump into the charts over here. First up, we have the dollar index. So dollar index right now, I'm neutral. Okay. But of course, we are still seeing price pushing higher. Um, the reason for me being neutral over here is simply because we are looking at potentially a five wave completed. Okay, and once that is completed, then of course we are expecting some sort of a pullback, right? So if there's going to be our fifth wave, then naturally, we wouldn't want to be um, buying too aggressively into that, right? And the market obviously has been kind of like extending quite a bit. So overall, I'm actually looking at potentially looking at the sell side, right? Once this fifth wave completed, but we need more confirmation from there. The clearest confirmation, of course, is for price to start coming back down, break this low, forms a corrective structure, and that would give us the downside probability. Okay, so it probably gonna take some time. I don't think that the setup would be established by this week. I think it's definitely going to take some time because we're looking primarily on a forward chart. So for that reason, I think that this week here, most of the major paths are unlikely going to give us any sort of opportunity that we can really look into. Okay, so again, if you look into like euro dollar, the inverse side of things, we're still neutral, right? We're expecting this to come down to complete a fifth wave, potentially some sort of a fake break here as well, right? Then might start to reverse. Okay, so again, we want to wait for that confirmation. Some key areas here, of course, you can have this minor structure high. The more, I would say, the more convicted high would be here. Okay, so what we want to see is obviously for price to start breaking this minor high, forms a consolidation. That is an initial indication that the price may start going higher. If you can take out this high, then that would be like the convicted bias would be definitely bullish, right? By then. Okay. So again, as I mentioned, right, I don't think that this week there are gonna be like probability or setups on dollar related, right? So I think overall dollar related will probably need to wait until like next week. Okay, but nonetheless, let's just go through overall. Okay, then we have GBP USD again, neutral. The price has been consolidation, right, since like 2 weeks, right? End of October, start of November, prices has been like consolidating all this while. Okay, so this one here, I'm also waiting for a clear structure pattern. Right now, there's really nothing there. So suggest is, not to pay too much attention on that. I've expanded some of the lists over here, so we'll look at some other cross pairs for opportunities within the week. Okay, um, simply because the majors doesn't really provide us anything meaningful. Okay, so this one here, Aussie dollar, again, nothing much over there. I mean, we get a break here, we get an impulsive move, but overall price is basically still stuck within this range, right? So unless we get a clear breakout or break to the bottom, I don't see anything worth kind of like trading. Okay. Uh, dollar Canadian pushing higher over here, right? So dollar Canadian, we are also kind of neutral to that because right now price is still basically trading within this range. Okay, unless we get a decisive break out of it. Again, I don't think it's anything worth noting overall. Okay, so this one here, just gonna maintain neutral too. Dollar yen, we're looking at potentially upside. Okay, but dollar yen over here, the only thing that probably want to be a little bit more concerned is the target, or I would say room to the upside, right? I mean, overall, it's pretty clear the directional bias is upside, but it's the same view as dollar index, right? In a way, I'm actually concerned with how much price has actually moved to the upside. Whoops. Okay, how much price has actually moved to the upside? So, um, can this continue to go higher? Might be, but would it be like super huge upside potential? Not necessary, unless price starts to do a significant pullback. Then yeah, I think upside would be the way to go, right? Because right now, what can happen here is that fifth wave can conclude here, and this can start to do that meaningful pullback, right? It doesn't need to make any new highs from here because we have broke this, right? And technically, with fifth wave could be completed, right? So that's the take on the yen side, right? So major pass right now as of this week, um, really nothing for me. Again, today is Monday. Usually the market is a bit slower, and couple that with US holiday, I don't expect much movement from there on. Okay. Gold is something that will have something within the week. Of course, depending on how price would continue to develop from here. Short term, I'm looking at targets of this structure. Hey, we get an impulsive drop, price able to remain below that level. So if you can get a pullback, right, some sort of a tree wave here, I would be interested to sell it. Okay, but looking at how price has been coming down quite a bit today, might potentially need to give it until Wednesday to see if you can get that set up. Okay, because tomorrow price may push higher, and then maybe Wednesday, that's where the trade might get tagged in around that zone. Okay, however, if price actually break that low, we want to see if we can get a V-shaped recovery following that, some sort of an expanding structure, then that can give us that sell trade. Okay, so potentially something, but we'll need to see how price is going to develop for the next couple of days, right? Very, very similar is of course silver. Um, Silver over here is also bearish. So again, if you can get that three wave structure, I would be interested in that sell side. Okay, so precious metal, gold and silver, something potential depending on how price is going to develop. Need to give it time and see how it develops, right? So that's why I have a rate tag over here, right? Potentially looking for that. Okay, crude oil, I'm not really very convicted on that. Very, very unfortunate that previous sell kind of tag in and then, kind of like start to move in the direction that we intended after we got tag out. Yeah, not the best of all. I'm just going to be neutral from here. I think with this kind of development, I mean, my odds of my hunch here is that it can go lower, right? That's why I intended to take that sell down, because this would be that 123, 123. But price actually did came as high as this structure high here. So the overall structure is a little bit not as clean. Potentially this is 1, this is 2, this is 3. I would want to see if that's going to be the case. I want to see some sort of a corrective pullback, right? So we'll see. Okay. As of now, there's really no clear setup that I can look to take from crude oil. Okay, as of this very moment. Okay. And then we have the U.S. Equities, right? So I think U.S. equities in general, it's all going to be bullish. Okay. I think there's nothing much in terms of the direction. I think it's super clear. The only aspect that we'll probably just need to wait it out a little bit is the setup phase, right? We have that impulsive move last week, so what we need to wait for is that corrective pullback. Okay, and we can essentially see it as any sort of a corrective pullback is a buy trade opportunity for us to look to the upside. Okay, pound yen. Okay, pound yen over here is a little bit tricky, but I would be looking out for sell side. Um, what I'm looking here is basically we have a possibility of a 1, 2, 3, and the market can start going higher. Um, and the alternative here is also a possibility that this can break down and start going lower, right? So this is the top, this is 1, this is 2, and then we have 3 and 4, 5. Okay, so we won't know until market comes back to the bottom and see how it's developing. Okay. So what I would suggest is if we can get a sell setup, we'll probably look to take this sell setup to the low and manage the trade accordingly to see if we can get this to break, right? Because if it breaks, that's good. It's a bonus that we can actually ride further. But if it doesn't, then this is the wave that we look to ride. The only thing right now, of course, even if I go down to the lower time frame, is that I don't see a clear sell opportunity, right? It can still build into that. I mean, we did get this clean, move to the downside, breaking some of that structure low. But this retracement, this first wave looks pretty impulsive. Okay, it can still turn into a corrective structure if the market comes down, goes back up. It can still turn into something like that. Okay, very possible, and then that would be the sell setup. But of course, for that to develop, it takes time. Okay, even on a lower time frame, it's going to take maybe a couple of days, right? So this is the primary take I'm going to have for now. Maintaining a bearish view, looking for the setup to take the sell trade, right? But I currently don't have this tag because I think it's gonna take some time. It's not like gonna be ready in the next 1 or 2 days. So this I'll just like monitor it. When it's ready, I'll get it tagged. Okay. Uh, Next up we have Aussie Yen. Aussie Yen here, the cross structure is there. But again, I'm neutral is because of this little V shape here. Okay, but as I mentioned, similar in the pound yen. This can actually can pull back, go back up, and can develop into a crawl eventually. Okay, it's just that again, it takes time to prove what you want to develop into. So I don't have it tagged. It's just basically neutral at this moment. Okay. Pound Australia, pre-90 going into the lower time frame. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, so going into the lower time frame, what we can potentially see over here is we have completed a 1, 2, 3 very nicely reaction of this. Okay, so if we can get a corrective pullback here, okay, that would open up an opportunity to take the buy trade to the upside. Now, whether this buy trade is going to go all the way, retest the top or not, as of now, we want to be a little bit cautious because what can happen is this is a 1, 2, 3, this can be a 1, 2, 3, and then reverse and come back down, right? So conservatively, what we want to look out for is somewhere around that 50 and 60 zone, right, of this three-wave pullback. So the idea here is if we get something like that, okay, and we look to enter this trade here, we want to first assess, is the risk to reward ratio make sense if I just take this trade here and look to target here? Okay, I mean, the risk to reward ratio will probably give you about 1 point something, right? You want to assess on that first. If that makes sense, you take that trade. You can play around with partial profit settings, right? You can say, oh, I'm going to take partial profits here, manage my trade accordingly. If this actually able to take up, okay, this zone and continue to go higher, um, that would be an added bonus, right? So something along those lines. Okay, so that's why I have red flag the pound odd, because I think this one here, there might be something this week that we can capitalize on. Okay, now I've also flagged some of the other lists here. For example, pound New Zealand. Okay, it's a cross pair, not something I look into, very regularly. But I think this is worth noting for the week, right? We have a very clean structure, seems to be developing in sets of three. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Um, this one here may be coming down to complete the third wave and then a push up. Okay, so obviously what I like about it is that this entire structure here is very, very corrective in nature. We have a 1618 as our stop loss, which protects, I would say, like this structure areas, okay, is protected by the stop loss there. Okay, so in a way, if this comes down lower, there's also the odds that this support area might help us to protect our stop loss. But of course, once that broken, it's logical to just get out from there. Okay, so this is a setup that might occur um, this week. Okay, the thing here, of course, you don't want this to just come down impulsively, right? Ideally, you want this to goes up, come down, slow down as it approach, and then bounce up impulsively. Okay, so pound New Zealand is another red flag that I have over here, potentially to keep an eye on for the week. Okay, Euro Yen, okay, is another one that I think it's worth noting. Okay, I don't look at the Euro Yen like regularly, but again, there's not much on the radar, so I just decide to scroll through to see what other things are worth noting for this week. Okay, so this one here is worth noting because this move has break the structure, has break this structure. Okay, today if I were to also include, okay, the overall trend line here, you can see that's also broken. So can this be an indication of a potential move lower? Okay, maybe towards like this zone here is a 5618 mark of this entire leg, potentially, right? And that's what I'm interested to look out for, right? So the bias is there, the directional focus is there. Now, obviously, we want to then now wait for a setup, right? So if I go down to the lower time frame, on the hourly here. Okay. What again I don't like is this strong retracement. But as I mentioned, what can happen over here is this can be a strong retracement and pull back here equally, and then this can still go back up, form a three-wave correction. Okay, still very possible. And then from there, we can have a valid sell setup to take this trade to the downside, right? Okay. So naturally, this is something to be focusing on. Obviously, this is a previous demand order block supply zone. If you take FIBs from this high to that low, that would coincide quite nicely with the 6182, right? So we can potentially also set a pending sell limit right now on the 61.8 Fibonacci retracement. But again, for me, I'll just wait out for another day and see how things roll out tomorrow, right? But this setup looks pretty good in terms of like risk to reward ratio, right? Can look pretty solid for a risk to reward ratio perspective as well. Just pull that up. Oh, right, if you just take the 50% expectation, it gives you like 1:3. Right, so Euro Yen is one of the ones that I think is worth noting for the week. Okay. Then we have Australia Canadian as well, right? So Australia Canadian over here, not something that we commonly look at. But again, adding it to this week's watch list, very clean structure. Right, we have 1, 2, 3. Price pull back sharply, but after that form a V without breaking this high. So that led me to consider the fact that it can turn into a 7 sequence, right? 7 count sequence. Okay, what I mean by that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this is a part where again we have this impulsive leg. If we can get a three-wave corrective move on the lower time frame, okay, that will open up the possibility of a potential sell, right? So we have that first leg, second leg. If this comes out, that would be a nice little trade on the hourly. Okay, now even if I don't drop to the lower time frame and just stick to the H4, and then use the simple FIB retracement, okay, where we have the 15,618, I think the risk reward ratio is gonna make sense either, right? Okay, you can see over here, right? 1:3. Okay, so yeah, there are a couple of opportunities that is like not in our usual watch list that I just thought of including into it for the week itself because there's really nothing much on the major pairs, right? And most of our common list here is generally on the major pair side of things. Okay. Very quickly, I'll jump into the global index, right? I think the US market is quite clear. Overall direction is going to be bullish. Okay, just wait for the corrective pullback, wait for the buy setup. Those are the US market. Index side, I think what's worth noting for the week is gonna be A50 or Hang Seng. Okay, so A50 and Hang Seng, what we see over here is that we have a three-wave move. Very nice little tap on the previous structure, and then market reverses instantly, right? So kind of V-shaped formation. So this gives us the completion of a three-wave. This as a bigger impulse, mini impulse here. If you can get a corrective structure, that will be a nice little sell opportunity. Okay, so that's on A50, right? If you go over to the Hang Seng market, it's very, very similar. All right, so we're also looking for the sell side. Okay, so these are pretty clear and clean structure that we can look out for. Okay, correction, look for sell. Okay, so in terms of like global index, this two is the clearest to me. The rest of it, like German DAX, um, right, it's pretty choppy. Okay, nothing much over there. Um, FTSE, right, nothing much as well as of now. Hey, FTSE had a nice little move to downside. That we initially were kind of like forecasting, right? Okay, but right now there isn't much. Okay, so same thing here in Aussie, right? I think nothing much that is very clear at the moment. We did forecast this nice little head and shoulder pattern, right? Tag this area and bounce up very nicely. So obviously no longer looking to sell, right? Because this is a key area price reacted off it. Right now, I think the focus will be very much if we can get a correction here, you'll be expecting upside and potentially breaking this high. Okay. Um, yeah. So those are some of the things to focus on for this week itself. Cool. Good. Yeah. So that's what I have for the week. Hopefully, it gives you some ideas on what to work on. Okay. Yeah. So that's all for me. Let me know if you guys have any questions. If not, then generally that's about it. Oh, good. Right. So with that, I think we'll end off today's session over here. Um, all the best, and we'll see how things move forward for the week itself, and keep you guys updated accordingly. Okay. Oh, okay. Bitcoin. I think I forgot to update on the crypto side. Okay, Bitcoin actually made a gap to the upside. Okay, so that gap, I mean, this is a futures market that I'm tracking, right? So that's obviously there's a gap because over the weekend, Friday, Saturday and Sunday, price actually make a move higher. So gaps are basically impulsive move. Okay, so what we're looking at here is bullish cycle, and any sort of a corrective pullback. Okay, would naturally be a buy opportunity to look for an upside. Okay, so if you scroll out all the way, right, it's basically all time high, and it's not surprising because we cover, like historically when there's halving, it cuts supply and naturally prices goes higher, right? It's just a matter of time. Okay, so BTC obviously right now we're gonna be bullish. I'm not sure why this data is just not loading. Okay, but that's basically an all-time high. Okay, um, so the cycle over here I'm looking at is okay. The cycle I'm looking at here is essentially this is 3, 4, and then we're looking at wave 5 to the upside, right? So why this is 3 is because we are looking at this here as a low. This is a 1 expansion, 2, right? And within this is potentially a nested, right? Basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, bigger 3 wave. Okay, so 5 wave internal. We are expecting a wave 4 pullback and then one more move. Okay, now wave 4 can potentially be a deeper pullback as well to come down somewhere here or even potentially here to move up. Okay, so this is your wave 4 potential target zone. Okay, so in other words, you don't want to be jumping in the buy at the peak, right? Um, the pullback can come as shallow as potentially this area, or it can go as deep as this area, and it's basically still a valid wave 4. Okay, because based on this sequence here, based on this structure of 5 wave, the actual invalidation will be where wave 1 territory is. All right. Um, so if I'm gonna take a FIP right now, okay, expectation is day 2. Um, yeah, so that's somewhere in the middle of that zone that we kind of highlighted, right? Okay, this area would potentially be where wave 4 can complete, right? So what you want to do is just be patient, wait for the pullback, and then that's your opportunity to look for more upside on BTC side of things. Okay, something like that. Okay, good. So, yep, that's all from me for today. Hopefully that helps and give you some insights. All the best for the week, and I'll keep you guys updated on the report as usual. Okay, so see you guys.